Ever wondered why I have a good sense of how I work? Well, it's because I've been spending a lot of time with Kathy Kolbe, who's the theorist and founder of Kolbe Corp. She is the first person to prove the existence of the cognitive mental faculty, which causes us to act, react, and interact, and demonstrates how we strive to solve problems and succeed. So, Kathy, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure. We always have a good time learning from each other and always love our direct conversation. So I think if you could just give us a quick outline of what the Colby wisdom and what it is and the difference between the affective mind as well.
Oh, just a little simple question like that. Sure. Well, let me just tell you how I know what I know, what made me get to what I know. My maiden name is Wonderlic. If your audience knows the Wonderlic personnel test, they know that it's a test that's similar to IQ. It's
Mhm.
measuring what you know and what you've learned, the facts that you remember. It's very cognitive. And I used to sit and score Wonderlicks, and I used to do work in our basement. All we kids worked on the Wonderlic business. And it just annoyed me because I thought it was, irrelevant. There's all these people who know how to answer these questions, but what difference does it make? I still feel that way when the NFL is using it to pick players. It has nothing to do with how you're going to defend or be offense or defense or whatever you'll do on the field will have nothing to do with your Wonderlic score.
Mm.
The Wonderlic score that my dad created was based on working in an office and would you know the kinds of things you need to know to be a good clerical person in an office, not an executive, not a creative, innovative person. It wasn't how you do it, it was what have you learned in school that you remember and can answer. So a Wonderlic score only tells you kind of what you remember that you were taught. It doesn't tell you what you've learned in
Ah,
terms of really coming up with your own knowledge. It doesn't have anything to do with your natural ability to create, be innovative, or be strategic, or any of the things that I think are important. So I started arguing with my dad when I was very young, as in probably grade school, that Dad, your test is stupid. It doesn't make any sense, and why would you use it in these ways? And he would get very frustrated and he'd just say, this conversation is over. If you don't like what I've done with this, you go do your own thing. Well, there you go, permission to do my own thing. That's all I needed. And so I started in middle school developing questions and trying to figure out what is it that Dad's not testing that I think should be? What is it that's wrong with cognitive testing? And I decided it's just captures what you remember from what you've been taught, what others have said is the right answer, the right way to do it. And that's not the way I felt was most interesting or productive. And in my mind, all those people who just regurgitated facts were dumb
mhm.
because they couldn't come up with their own ideas or information. And I was captain of the not football, soccer team. I was in high school co-directing the high school musical. What I valued were people who did their own thing, who came up with solutions that, oh, nobody's ever done it that way before.
Mhm.
The end of our high school musical, that was the primary comment was nobody's ever done a show like this before. It's totally different. It has a script, it has characters. It's not just getting up on the stage and singing and then the next one comes up and it's different. I said, well, of course it's different. Why would I want to do it the same way? And I got others excited about, let's do something that's never been done before.
Unique. Yeah.
So with that background, when I started studying psychology in college, I would ask questions like, well, what is it happening in the mind if you don't follow directions, you don't do things the same way? And as you know, I'm seriously dyslexic.
Mhm.
And so does it make me stupid? Because, and I didn't know the word dyslexic at the time, but because I go in the wrong direction and I lose things, and I described not being able to write my own name for weeks. My mother tutored me to write my name, and I finally had to do it the way that seemed wrong for me. That's not right. And my mother said, no, 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 that's right. I said, okay, so now I always have to do it wrong in order to be right.
Right.
And I learned, much as I think you probably have, just let me be me, let me do it wrong, and I'll come out with something that'll work. It'll work for me and maybe for other people too. So I think of myself as a person who was willing to say all those experts are wrong, including my dad, who was he was an industrial psychologist of note. The Wonderlic test was used by any major corporation that you would apply for a job with. And I would say, but Dad, this has nothing to do with whether people are going to be good salespeople or whether they're going to write wonderful new programs. I probably didn't say that then because they weren't programs then, but they weren't going to innovate. They weren't going to come up with great new ideas. I've always said it's not that I was smart enough to know what I know. It was almost, I was so dyslexic, I had to find alternative solutions. And by finding alternative solutions, I discovered what wasn't in the psych books. And that is that there aren't just two parts of the mind, the left brain, right brain, cognitive or your ideas. What I came to realize is I had these charts starting in high school with 4 categories. And you were either mostly this and less that. And I was trying to figure out, what are these categories? I was looking at human nature. I was looking at something that wasn't taught. You didn't learn to do that. It wasn't something that would help you on a Wonderlic or an SAT or any of those kinds of tests. I was seeing that people had value for the way they created solutions, for the way they did things, for how they got things done sooner rather than later or differently, unique. I valued those things that others weren't even measuring because it didn't seem important.
I like that distinction. You have value when creating solutions. I think that's a very powerful statement.
Well, it kind of summarizes why I do what I do and why I try to say to people, it doesn't really matter what grades you got because the teacher is evaluating you whether you agree with them. I loved it when I was in college and we did an essay test and we were asked to give an answer, and I knew exactly the answer the professor wanted. I'd been paying attention, and I'd say, here's what you want me to say, and here's what I really think. I had some very interesting discussions with my professors, and they'd say, some of them would say, this is kind of rude of you. And I said, well, it's very open of you to say that and have this discussion with me. I mean, they couldn't they couldn't say anything that didn't egg me on.
So you discovered there's 3 parts in the mind, is what you're alluding to now. You started to observe people, how they were doing things in 4 categories.
I started keeping track of that when I was in middle school. And in high school, it was really relevant because I was picking people to work with me on the student musical and the newspaper and all these things. And I found I was looking for a kind of a person and a kind of a mind and an approach to problem solving and the way they would help us put on the show or help us put out a newspaper. What do you got? What do you have to offer? How do you do it? And I don't want you to do it my way. I want you to do it a different way. So I knew there were different ways people instinctively did things, and that was the term. I figured out the term in college. I've been looking at it from the time I was young, very young. But in college, I figured out the right term is instincts. If you trust your instincts, you won't get in as much trouble. If you trust your instincts, you'll guess the right answer. If you trust your instincts, you'll know to dump the guy. there's, in life, what we have to do is trust our instincts, because nobody is walking our path. They can't tell us what to do because they haven't been there, seen it, done it. So I was advocating in psych classes, sociology classes, this thing that was in my mind about, but they're human instincts. Why aren't you talking about that? And they'd say, no, that's not a part of our coursework. That's not in the psych book. It's not. I said, well, why not? It's there. It has to be there. But then I went down a road where I had to be more practical. I got married, I had kids, I had to help. My husband was a beginning journalist, there was no money in it, so I had to figure out ways to be more practical about what I knew.
Mhm.
And that's when I started categorizing even more directly with what is needed in business, what is needed in the workplace, what is needed in sports, in medicine, and showbiz. And it always came down to, tell me the role. Tell me how they need to perform, and I can make a match. I already had 4 categories. The 4 categories started in middle school. I had a chart with 4 categories, and you would be some in each, a lot in some, a little in. It's so funny. In middle school, I was developing the four modes and the 3 zones.
Hmm.
So it
Wow.
wasn't something I learned from anyone else. It's something I learned by living, doing, and being curious. And of course, the fact my dad had created the test that you had to take to get a job at the time, and almost any major company was using the Wonderlic. And I didn't agree with my dad. I loved him dearly, but he was wrong.
Yeah, and I agree with that because it was a cognitive test, correct? The Wonderlic,
Totally cognitive.
totally cognitive. And then when I
Why
got
it's
in,
so amazingly stupid to use it with the NFL. Oh my God, what a dumb. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever known of any organization to do, to give the Wonderlic to football.
oh, I guess if it's worked, they think it worked in the past. No one's going to make the decision to stop it, right? So, when I got introduced to the Kolbe, that was with strategic coach in my first workshop, and I knew it made sense to me to a certain degree, but I never got an appreciation of it until I applied it to my team. And then starting to see it as how they worked, how they solved the problem was not the same way I did. And it really improved communication because not only do you solve the problem differently, you also communicate and receive information differently. And it really provided you to respect the other person's way of working or MO. And your way is not the only way.
That's so important and so, to me, obvious. And yet, there's so many people who have access to using Kolbe who aren't using it, and I think it's because they have a fear of being known.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I don't know why our culture has that fear. But what I've discovered is some really smart people who had the opportunity to take the Kolbe, to learn from it, would give it to others, but would not want to take it themselves because of a fear of being known, a fear of maybe there's something about me that isn't so great, and I don't want others to learn that about me. So
Yeah, because that means I'm different than than the norm, and now they got proof I'm an oddball.
well, or they've got proof that they can use against me because they know now who
Yeah,
I.
yeah.
People have a fear of being known because they think they're tricky.
Mhm.
If you don't know who I am, you can't figure out what I'm gonna do, and I'll have a heads up. I mean, if you
Uh-huh.
look at the political games being played right now, it's stupid. Because the more people know who you are, the more comfortable and the more, it's a whole series of affect. To know someone is to appreciate who they are, to understand who they are, to give them an
Mhm.
opportunity to excel by being who they are. And when we don't trust that in each other, we can't build solid teams. When I look at
Well, you
some
can't
of,
build respect that way, is the way you're explaining it. If you
well,
don't
you
know,
people would want, the first thing I would want is everybody on my team to take the cold because I want to know how I can help them excel. I want to get the
yeah,
very best of their energy and I want them to love doing what they're doing because we all thrive by doing our best. When we don't allow a person to have the freedom to do it their own way, we harm them, but mostly we harm ourselves and the team effort.
mhm,
And when I work with organizations and say that to them and they say, oh yeah, okay, well, I want to know my employees, I'll figure it out. They write me these amazing letters back about how our productivity, I mean, IBM wrote me these letters, major universities wrote me these letters about what an amazing opportunity this was to understand another person and help them excel. Why wouldn't we want to do that? It is unfortunately something I've come to understand that I wish I didn't have to understand. But I've come to understand some people really don't want you to be better at something than they are, or to
yes,
understand.
unfortunately, yeah,
It is, I think, the fear that someone might be better than you at something that keeps you, not you personally, but a leader from learning the MO. To say that I want my team to be who they are and free to be who they are is to say I trust myself. And
correct.
and I trust others to trust themselves, and together we will make better decisions because of it. I was at a meeting several years ago with a Fortune 10 company, and all these learned people in the room, all these great decisions they were making, and there was obvious tension within the senior group that I was working with. And I finally said, what's going on here? And it was all men at that time. And I said, do you guys not trust each other? And they kind of looked at each other and looked away from each other and stayed not looking at each other. And I said, okay, you've answered the question by not answering the question. Let's deal with the reality. You are all very, very bright and you see solutions in different ways from one another, and you each think your way is the right way. Well, guess what? The best thing for this company is that you all do it your way, and collectively you will get a better solution.
Yeah, and for me, I want to be the dumbest person in the company, and everyone knows that. So I got my strength, my abilities, my MO, and I want people that will fit in those gaps, either cognitively or cognitively, like my Kolbe. Like I got people who are follow throughs. They'll follow the process and get it done the same way every time. Well, my two follow through doesn't do that. But
Right.
we need that. So that's why I kind of, as a leader, me saying to my team, I want to be the dumbest person in the company. That means I got to hire people that has other abilities and skills that I don't have.
I would say it a different way. You're not dumb. Everybody knows you're not dumb. Don't say you're dumb. That's not a good thing to say because it's not the truth. Say the
Mhm.
truth. The truth is you have a lot of wisdom about a lot of things, but you really don't know what you're talking about in other areas.
Correct.
And it's not because you're dumb. Don't ever call yourself dumb because it makes you sound arrogant. It's what very smart people say when they're being arrogant. Don't do that.
I won't.
Good. The truth is this. When I discovered conation, it was because I was working with handicapped kids a great deal. It's because I'm dyslexic. I have all kinds of disses. And yet, many times in many situations, I'd be the smartest person in the room. And that really puzzled me. Why do I get to the answer here or the solution? I would get to the solution faster, not the answer, the solution. I
Can you
was
differentiate the two? Because I think that's a key thing to discuss here. Solution versus answer.
it, knowing the right answer means you could memorize it. You could learn, oh, this is the answer, but it doesn't help you understand how to come up with solutions to real problems where there aren't answers. In the work I was doing and have done most of my life, there were no answers. I just had a bunch of questions and I sought solutions to these weird problems that people weren't able to solve in normal ways.
Mhm.
Solutions requires trusting your instincts and trial and error and being willing to be wrong. No one can be a good leader if they aren't willing to be wrong, because it means all they're doing is replicating the formula. That's
Right.
not leading, that's just doing the same old thing. To be a leader, you have to trust the instincts of the people you're leading and you have to work with them as equals. And so I'm looking at what is it that makes us equal and yet different.
Yes.
And different includes confidence. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you aren't confident in your ability to come up with solutions, you're dead in the water. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what else. I mean, you are not a solutions provider. You don't do it. Solutions require confidence in your natural abilities, in who you are and how you get things done. If you don't trust yourself to come up with solutions, why would anybody else trust you? And by the way, it's perfectly obvious if you don't trust yourself because you stammer and you stutter and I shouldn't say that word, it's not, I don't mean
Yeah.
that you have a speech defect. It means that you don't present yourself as confident affectively in a cognitive solution because you know the answer. But that's when, oh, my instincts will kick in. Maybe I don't know the answer, but I know how to get there.
Hmm.
I know how to come up with something that'll work. And that's your instincts jumping in and saying, but I'll save the day. I'll do it. I'll make it okay. I'll come up with something. Now, you and I both do it do that in a similar way. It doesn't make us better at being creative. It makes us people who thrive because we both say what we think and do it our way and then see what happens.
Yeah.
We don't have it all figured out ahead of time. So I don't know what I'm going to say to you today. And
No.
if I did, it'd be totally boring. So what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what I like about the whole Kolbe system, or the the index and the theory.
It is a system.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you just give the person the end result, what you're looking for at the end, and leave the middle out to them, let them figure out how they solve it best, things get done a lot quicker. And what I've in my experience, I find it gets solved a lot better.
I think it depends on the situation. I'm not thrilled at a situation where we have a serious problem. I know the answer, but I won't tell you, or I won't give you the clues. That's not okay.
No, that's not what I was referring to.
No, I
No,
know.
if we got policies and procedures, we would follow that, but no, just let them solve it in their own way with the proper information to get the end result.
I know what you're saying,
Yeah,
and we understand what we mean, but I think most people don't understand what it
fair
means.
enough.
It's not, what I'm trying to say is the Kolbe system is a method or a model of assuring that every human being has a way through Kolbe assessments of knowing what their mental strengths are, what
Yes.
their natural abilities through their creative process. We're all equally creative, but we create differently. So some people create strategies, and those are the ones who have a long line in Fact Finder. A long line in any mode doesn't make you better. It means you use it more and you start problem solving with it. You and I both start with the long green line in quick start, meaning we take a risk.
Mhm.
Trial and error, we'll see what happens. We don't have any kind of an outline. You made an outline for me and I ignored it for what you wanted me to talk about because I don't follow outlines. You knew that when you sent
I
it to
knew
me.
that.
Of course you knew that when you sent it to me, but you needed it for you.
Yeah,
And so that's fine, and I didn't tear it up, I just never read it.
and
But
I'm not offended by it at all. Because I know that's
No,
how you work.
you knew I wasn't gonna read it,
Yeah.
but you needed the exercise for you to do it, and then you knew if we get off track, I've got this, so it's a
Mhm.
backup plan. And often, people who aren't well organized have a backup plan for it. You've drawn that little picture behind you of this office, it's all tidy and neat, and that's not reality, that's a picture of something you would never do.
Yeah.
Your real office would be a mess.
Yeah, it is.
But
And
you're
that's
not,
that was to ridicule other people.
oh, why would you ridicule other people's natural way of doing it?
Because they
Well, then,
ridiculed me before, so I got back at them. But nah, it was a facetious sketch for, yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, I'm piles. I got piles. I got to visibly, these things have to be visible for me to see so I don't forget.
and I have plants, and I don't need piles if I have plants. The plants energize me,
Hmm.
you can't believe how many plants I have where I live.
Oh, I believe it.
And it is what nurtures me, to be in an environment. And in Phoenix, it's too hot to go out and garden in the summer, so I just bring in more houseplants. We have to learn what we need to do to nurture us, and that's what Kolbe helps you do.
Hmm.
You have what it takes to be a creative problem solver. Every human being has what it takes, but they don't know it. It's the best kept secret, actually the worst at its outcome, because people are so good at hiding their truth, they don't know their truth, and therefore they don't benefit from being true. And where is the biggest harm in that? It's in relationships.
Yeah.
Personal and business relationships are harmed so much when we don't know, why are you saying that to me? Why are you doing that? What made you think that's okay? How come that's what you think is the best way to do it? Why aren't you paying attention to what I need? Needs are conative. Conative is a word I found, it wasn't in any dictionaries at the time. Well, it was in one dictionary and taken out. About the time I discovered the word conation, it was taken out of the dictionary. And yet, interestingly, decades later, I think it was last month, conation was made the word of the day by the dictionary people. It's because they can no longer deny it. When I discovered there was this thing and it had a name and it was conation, and I had to go back to the ancient philosophers to really get clarity on that. I started calling psych departments and HR departments and say, what are you doing about conation? They didn't know anything about it. It was after I called a lot of places and found they knew nothing about it that I decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. I'm gonna make the world know conation because it matters.
Yeah, I think it really does matter because, like you said earlier, like cognitive tests only measures what you know, not what you learned, right? And I like what you said. You have value when you create solutions instinctively, and that a solution is more about understanding what's going on, not remembering what the answer is.
Let's take a real life example with the fact that the NFL uses the Wonderlic just creeps me out. There's no correlation between being a good quarterback and a Wonderlic score.
Mhm.
There's a correlation between being a good quarterback and having quick start energy, which is a conative, one of the four conative modes. I discovered early on that quick start is what drives those of us who have a lot of it in our MO to take a risk, to do things that aren't in the plan. There's no,
Comfortable with risk and uncertainty. Yeah.
yes. So if Taylor Swift's boyfriend is gonna be a good quarterback, he's gonna need to have a lot of quick start.
Yeah.
And if he's a lot of quick start, he's gonna end up in some foreign country where she's entertaining and she doesn't know he's gonna be there because he loves to surprise and do things that aren't on the calendar.
Yeah.
So relationships, I'm gonna guess both of them have quite a bit of quick start. She has more follow through than he, I'm guessing. Be interesting to do them. We've done some very famous couples and testing, and what we found is it's not always good to be the same it's good to have some similarities and then have some differences that help broaden the capabilities of the team within a partnership. So one of the things I found in couples who get married and have kids, it's so much easier to marry someone who's a little different from you and will help the kid do different things than you will. So I don't know very many people who are relationship counseling who are smart enough to know that you need cognitive differences, emotional similarities or agreements, cognitive variations.
Yeah.
Once you know these kinds of things, it's a aha moment.
Oh, huge. And that's what I really like about the Kolbe. It's a tool that really validates how you take actions, you solve problems and strive. And it doesn't matter what sex, religion, politics that you have. It's an instinctive measurement tool that explains to me how you will solve a problem every time and how you like to be communicated to. That's what I like about it as well. And it doesn't take a long time to do. It's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to take.
Actually, about 12 is what
Yeah.
it averages out to. It's so quick to take, it's so inexpensive, it's so accessible online. Part of me thinks people don't take it because they are afraid to know the truth. But the truth with conation is that nobody's ever better than anyone else. The only way in which human beings are equal is cognitively. We're not equal physically in height or strength. We're not equal cognitive in intelligence. We're not equally nice or caring, but we are equally endowed with creative power. Creative power is what conation is. It is the ability to create solutions and to do what you need to do.
Yeah. And where can people find the Kolbe to take the
You can go
index?
right online, just go to Kolbe, and it's spelled weirdly, Kolbe. Go to kolbe.com and it'll take you right to the Take a Kolbe index.
And to get a good, the online interpretation is good. It's very well done. If you want to go further into it, it's highly recommended that you talk to certified consultants, Kolbe certified consultants. You get the extra
Yeah.
layer
You know,
of the
I
interpretation.
wasn't satisfied having a written description of you, so I have an audio for every single Kolbe result. But then I was not satisfied with that, and I said, I can't run around behind each index and do an interpretation. What I need to do is run around and find people like you who are intelligent, caring, knowledgeable, and have the energy and the desire to help. And I will train you, I will certify you to interpret Kolbe. So we have over 2 million people who are out there taking the Kolbe. We need a lot of people to be Kolbe certified to interpret. So you're one of the great people who understands and explains to people, we need more of you. We need people who want to help interpret the truth, the creative power to others. So the certification program matters immensely. Your involvement matters immensely because those of you who are certified are helping hundreds of people. I can't be out there helping everybody, and as much as I do online, it's never enough. It's the fact that people like you are not only personally benefiting, but you're helping others understand and learn their MOs. That's the way this was intended to happen. This is the natural way of cluing the world into stop stressing about who you are and be who you are. And that's what you can do for people and are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that's what it really does. It validates the person. It gives them permission to be themselves, and they understand themselves a lot better, so they can communicate better. And
It's so many different ways of communicating. My son, this is not, by the way, genetic. So people don't inherit the same MO. My son is now CEO of Kolbe Corp. Fabulous job doing it. He is doing all the things I never did, all the fact finding. He happens to be a lawyer, and he went to Wharton, so he's got the numbers part. So I can sit back and create, and he will analyze value propositions. He will keep all the legal things in. I mean, he is an amazing fact finder, detail-oriented person with a second mode in Quick Start. So he doesn't at least think I'm stupid. We
Yeah.
can get together on the Quick Start part. It's really fun I founded the business almost 50 years ago, and now I've turned it over to my kids. But I know their MOs, I know they'll work together, I know how they'll do it, and can have that confidence. It's not just that they want to, they have the will to do it, which is conative, because so much of conation ties to our purposefulness. You can want to do something, but will you do it? You can understand how to do something. Will you make it happen? The will to do it and the way it happens is conative.
Nice. I think it's a great place to end there. Your will is conative and helps you with your purposeful drive. So to you, the listener, do you know how you take action and how you can initiate that purposefulness? If you don't know, like we said, go to Kolbe.com and get your Kolbe index and try to find a certified Kolbe consultant so you can, like you said, Kathy, learn the truth of how you solve problems. And I want to thank you personally. I've learned a lot from you. We've quarreled many times. Um,
That's
and that's the fun of it. And because that's what I like about this tool. It's one of those things, everyone's, like you said, everyone is equal but different. And it's a very safe way to learn about other people and reduce the judgment and criticism out of it. So thank you very much. And for you to break through the barriers that you did over the last 50 years, kudos on you. I don't think anyone else could have done it besides you. So thank you for that. And thanks again, Kathy, for another great conversation. It was nice to learn more about how you developed and observed the conative in people since elementary school. It's amazing.
Well, kudos to you for putting up with, we can get in an argument so easily. You saved us from the argument today. But I'm willing to really get into I won't get my fists up, but I love a good argument. So come up next time with some questions where you think we'll disagree.
Oh, I know 3 already, so I'm ready.
All right,
I'm ready.
you're on.
Thanks again, Kathy, and to you, the listener. Thanks again for learning with me.
You're so welcome.